The great hall of New Geneva Space Station buzzed with the usual chaos of a galactic council meeting. Delegates from 47 different species argued, clicked, hummed, and gestured in their native languages while translation devices worked overtime to keep up. The Velkrani ambassador waved all four of his arms while complaining about trade disputes. The crystalline Yetharians chimed in harmony about mining rights. The slug-like Mortons oozed disapproval at everything, but something was wrong. Something was missing. Council Speaker Zexnara, a tall blue-skinned Aquarian, noticed it first. She had been leading these meetings for 20 years, and in all that time, one thing had remained constant. The humans always interrupted. They always had something to say, some wild idea to propose, some impossible solution to suggest. They were loud, chaotic, and completely unpredictable. Today, they were silent. Zexnara looked toward the human section of the council chamber. The seats were empty. Not a single human representative was present. This had never happened before. Not once in the 150 years since humanity had joined the council. Where are the human delegates? She asked her aide, a nervous Polonian who kept checking his datapad. Unknown speaker. They haven't responded to any communications for the past 3 days. 3 days. Zexnara felt a chill run down her spine. Humans didn't go quiet for 3 hours, let alone 3 days. Across the chamber, other delegates were beginning to notice the absence. The Velkrani ambassador stopped mid-argument and looked around. Where are the humans? They should be arguing with us by now. Perhaps they are ill, suggested the Yetharian choir speaker, her crystal body ringing softly. Their biological forms are quite fragile. All of them, at once? The Morton delegate's voice was thick with doubt. Impossible. Zexnara called for order, but the chamber was already erupting into concerned chatter. She had seen many strange things in her years as speaker, but this was different. This felt ominous. Council members, she announced, her voice carrying across the hall. We will postpone today's agenda. I need to know where our human colleagues are. Within minutes, the chamber's communication systems were working at full capacity. Messages were sent to every human colony, every human ship, every human outpost in known space. The response was the same everywhere. Silence. Dr. Korath, the Velthani science officer who managed the station's sensors, appeared on the main screen. His reptilian face showed deep concern. Speaker, I've been monitoring all human communication networks. They went dark exactly 72 hours ago, all at once, across every system they control. Technical failure? Asked the Velkrani ambassador. Impossible. The probability of simultaneous failure across that many systems is less than 1 in a trillion. The chamber fell quiet. Even the most argumentative species stopped their chatter. Everyone knew what this meant. Either humanity had suffered some catastrophic disaster or something else was happening. Something planned. Zex, single quotes. Nara remembered the last time she had spoken with Ambassador Kate Williams, the human diplomat who usually sat in the front row, arguing with everyone about everything. Kate had seemed normal, perhaps a bit distracted, but nothing unusual for a human. They were always thinking about 6 different things at once. What about their trade routes? Asked the Polonian aide. That's just it, Dr. Korath replied. The Zephyrian cargo fleet has been waiting outside the Sol system for 3 days. No response to their hails, no traffic control. No customs officials, nothing. Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian Trade Guild stood up, his insectoid body clicking with agitation. Our ships are full of goods bound for human colonies. Medical supplies, food, raw materials. If they don't respond soon, we'll have to return to our homeworld. The cargo is perishable. Medical supplies? The Yetharian delegates' chimes turned worried. What if they need help? What if there's a plague or some kind of disaster? Zexnara had been thinking the same thing. But something about this felt different from a natural disaster. The humans were too smart, too prepared for emergencies. They had backup systems for their backup systems. They planned for every possible failure. "Dr. Korath," she said. "What do your sensors show about human space?" The Velthani scientist's scales changed color, a sign of deep thought. "That's the strange part, Speaker. All the human colonies are still there. Their cities are powered. Their ships are in normal patrol patterns. Their orbital stations are functioning. But there are no life signs that we can detect from this distance." "No life signs?" The chamber erupted again. This time, the chatter was fearful. "It could be interference," Dr. Korath added quickly. "The humans have been experimenting with new technologies. Some of their research could be blocking our sensors." But Zexnara wasn't convinced. She had learned to trust her instincts over the years, and right now, every instinct was screaming that something big was happening. Something that involved the most unpredictable species in the galaxy going completely silent. "Council members," she announced, "I'm calling for an emergency investigation. We need to send a joint mission to human space to determine what has happened to our colleagues." "What if it's dangerous?" asked the Morton delegate. "What if whatever happened to them could happen to us?" "Then we need to know about it even more," Zexnara replied. "If there's a threat to humanity, it could be a threat to all of us." The council voted quickly. For once, there was no argument, no debate, no long speeches. The absence of human voices had united the galaxy's most argumentative species in a way that nothing else ever had. As the meeting ended and delegates began to file out, Zexnara stood alone at the podium, looking out at the stars through the chamber's great window. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness of space, humanity had gone quiet. And for the first time in her long career, she was truly afraid of what that silence might mean. Admiral Zextar's investigation fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of human territory. The Velkrani commander had seen many strange things in his 40 years of military service, but nothing had prepared him for what he found in human space. The fleet consisted of ships from 6 different species, all working together to solve the mystery of humanity's silence. Dr. Yithara, the crystalline Yitharian scientist, stood beside him on the bridge of the flagship. Her body hummed with nervous energy as she watched the sensor readings. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Varan from the sensor station, "I'm detecting multiple human vessels ahead. They appear to be maintaining standard patrol formations. Any response to our hails?" "None, sir, just like the others reported." For the past 2 days, the investigation fleet had been moving through human space, finding the same thing everywhere. Ships in perfect formation, doing exactly what they were supposed to do, but with no one answering calls. It was like finding a house, with all the lights on but nobody home. "Take us closer to that space station," Admiral Zextar ordered, pointing at a large orbital facility ahead of them. As they approached, Dr. Yithorai's sensors painted a detailed picture of the station. "Life support is active. Artificial atmosphere is normal. All systems are running perfectly. But I detect no biological life signs anywhere on the station." "How is that possible?" "I don't know, Admiral. The readings suggest the station should have a crew of about 2,000 humans. But according to my instruments, there's nobody there." Admiral Zextar had fought in 3 wars and explored the far edges of known space. He was not easily frightened. But something about these empty human installations made his skin crawl. "Send a boarding party," he decided. "Small team. Full environmental suits. Maximum caution." Dr. Yithara volunteered to join the boarding party along with Captain Melndar of the Aquarian Marines and tech specialist Grix from the Polonian Engineering Corps. They took a small shuttle to the station's main docking bay. The docking bay doors opened automatically as they approached. Emergency lights guided them to a landing pad. Everything worked exactly as it should, but the bay was empty and silent. "This is very wrong," Captain Melndar whispered as they walked through the corridors. Their footsteps echoed strangely in the empty halls. The station was pristine. Clean floors, working lights, humming machinery. They found workstations with half-finished reports still displayed on screens. Coffee cups sat on desks still warm. In one laboratory, Dr. Yithara found an experiment that was still running. Automated systems carefully monitoring some kind of biological process. "Look at this," tech specialist Grix called from a computer terminal. The maintenance logs show that all systems were being serviced right up until 3 days ago. Then everything just stops. Dr. Yithara studied the records. Not stops, look closer. The automated systems are still running maintenance. It's only the human entries that stopped. They found more clues as they explored. Personal belongings. Left behind, but in organized piles, not scattered like people had left in a hurry. Beds that had been made with military precision. Storage areas that had been carefully sealed. "It's like they were preparing for something," Captain Melndar observed. "Like they knew they were going to leave." In the station commander's office, they found something that made Dr. Yithara's crystalline structure ring with alarm. Hidden. In the desk drawer was a datapad containing encrypted files. The encryption was beyond anything she had seen before, using mathematical principles that seemed impossible. "This is not normal human technology," she told the others. "This is something new, something advanced." They took the datapad back to the fleet, where the ship's best codebreakers worked for hours to decrypt even small portions of the files. What they found was disturbing. The files contained references to something called Project Whisper and the Great Silence Protocol. There were mentions of consciousness transfer, quantum entanglement, and something called the Approaching Shadow. But most of the technical details remained locked behind encryption that seemed to change itself every time they tried to break it. "Admiral," Dr. Yithara reported, "I believe the humans have been working on something in secret. Something that required them to coordinate across their entire species simultaneously. What kind of project would require that level of coordination? I don't know. But based on these files, they've been preparing for this for years, maybe decades." The investigation continued for another week. They visited 12 human colonies, 37 space stations, and hundreds of ships. The pattern was always the same. Perfect maintenance, running systems, no crew. It was as if every human in the galaxy had simply stepped out of reality at toes, as if every human in the galaxy had simply stepped out of reality at exactly the same moment, but they found more clues. Hidden research facilities that had been hastily abandoned. Laboratories filled with equipment designed to study consciousness and the nature of reality itself. Warehouses full of supplies that had been carefully organized and sealed. On the colony world of New Terra, they found the most disturbing evidence yet. In the planet's main research center, Dr. Yithara discovered a massive underground facility that hadn't appeared on any official records. The facility was filled with strange machines that hurt her mind to look at directly. "These devices," she told Admiral Zextar, "they seem to be designed to alter consciousness itself. To change how the mind relates to physical reality." "Change it how?" "I think they were trying to separate consciousness from the physical body. To exist as pure thought while still maintaining individual identity." The implications were staggering. If humans had succeeded in such an experiment, they might not be gone at all. They might simply exist in a way that other species couldn't detect or understand. As the investigation fleet prepared to return to Council space with their findings, Admiral Zextar stood on his bridge looking out at the silent human colonies. The stars looked the same as always, but something fundamental had changed. Humanity hadn't just gone quiet. They had transformed into something else entirely, and the most frightening part was that they had done it on purpose. Dr. Yithara worked day and night to break the encryption on the human data files. Her crystalline mind processed information faster than most biological brains, But even she struggled with the complex codes the humans had created. When she finally cracked the first major file, what she found made her entire body vibrate with shock. The file belonged to Dr. Maria Santos, a human quantum physicist. Her research logs told a story that chilled every member of the investigation team. Personal log, Dr. Maria Santos, Day 847 of Project Whisper. The translation device read in its mechanical voice. We have confirmed the worst-case scenario. The entities beyond the galactic rim are not just hostile. They exist in a state that our current understanding of reality cannot explain. Conventional weapons, shields, even our most advanced technology means nothing to them. Admiral Zextar listened to the log with growing dread. Entities beyond the rim? What entities? Dr. Yithara continued playing the files. More logs from Dr. Santos painted a terrifying picture. 3 years ago, human deep space probes had detected something massive approaching from outside the galaxy. At first, they thought it was a natural phenomenon, maybe a dark matter storm or gravitational anomaly. They were wrong. The beings feed on consciousness itself. Dr. Santos's voice continued from another log. They don't destroy planets or kill bodies. They consume the very essence of thinking minds. Every species they encounter becomes nothing more than empty shells, walking around but no longer truly alive. Captain Melndar, who had been silent during the briefing, suddenly spoke up. How do the humans know all this? How could they learn so much about entities that are still outside our galaxy? Dr. Yithara had found the answer to that question in another set of files. They captured one of the advanced scouts, a small entity that had been sent ahead to study the galaxy's defenses. The humans managed to contain it in a special facility and study it for months. The study had nearly cost humanity everything. 3 research stations had been lost before they learned how to properly contain the entity. Hundreds of human scientists had their minds drained, leaving them alive but empty. But the humans had learned something crucial from their sacrifice. The entities exist primarily in what humans call quantum space, Dr. Yithara explained to the investigation team. They can step in and out of normal reality at will. Physical attacks pass right through them. Energy weapons have no effect. They can only be fought by beings who can also exist in quantum space. And humans think they can do this? Admiral Zextar asked, more than think. According to these files, they've been working on it for years. The next file they decoded belonged to General Alex Thompson, a human military strategist. His logs revealed the scope of humanity's desperate plan. The Great Silence Protocol is our only chance, General Thompson's voice echoed through the ship's speakers. Every human must participate. We cannot have even one person refusing to undergo the transformation. The entities will sense any normal consciousness and use it as an anchor point to enter our reality. Dr. Yithara found more files from other human scientists and military leaders. Professor Nathan Cross had developed the theoretical framework for consciousness transfer. Commander Sarah Blake had volunteered for the first experimental transformation. Dozens of other humans had contributed pieces to humanity's impossible plan. They're trying to transform their entire species into beings that can exist in both normal space and quantum space simultaneously, Dr. Yithara explained. Keep their individual personalities and memories, but gain the ability to fight the entities on their own level. Is such a thing even possible? Asked tech specialist Grix. According to human calculations, yes. But the process requires perfect coordination across their entire species. Everyone must transform at exactly the same moment, or the process fails and they all die. The investigation team spent hours reviewing more files. They learned that humans had been secretly preparing colonies for the transformation. Special facilities had been built on every human world, designed to help the consciousness transfer process. Volunteers had been testing smaller versions of the procedure for months, But the most shocking discovery came from Dr. Santos's final log entry. "The entities will arrive in approximately 6 months," her voice said. "We have detected their main force moving toward the galactic rim. They're not just coming for us. They're coming for everyone. Every thinking species in the galaxy will become their food unless we can stop them." Admiral Zextar felt his blood turn cold. 6 months? But that was recorded 3 months ago. That means the entities could arrive in as little as 3 months, Dr. Uthara finished. Maybe less. The team searched through more files, looking for any information about when the transformation would be complete. They found references to emergence protocols and quantum awakening schedules, but the exact timing remained unclear. What was clear was that humanity had sacrificed everything they were to become something new. They had given up their physical forms, their normal way of existing, their ability to communicate with other species, all to fight an enemy that no one else could even see. "There's something else," Dr. Uthara said, her voice quieter than before. "According to these files, the transformation isn't just about fighting the entities. It's about becoming like them, but remaining good. Humans are trying to gain the same powers as the enemy while keeping their humanity. And if they fail?" Captain Naldar asked. Dr. Uthara was quiet for a long moment. "If they fail, then they become the very thing they're trying to fight. A species that exists in quantum space, but has lost all connection to normal reality. They would be as dangerous to us as the original entities." The investigation team looked at each other with new understanding. Humanity hadn't just gone silent to save themselves. They had risked becoming monsters to protect the entire galaxy. And in 3 months or less, they would all learn whether humanity's desperate gamble had worked. Outside the ship's windows, the stars looked different now. Each point of light might be hiding human colonies where an entire species was transforming into something beyond normal understanding. The silence that had seemed so ominous now felt like the quiet before the most important battle in galactic history. The first sign that something was changing came 3 weeks after the investigation. Team returned to New Geneva Station. Dr. Uthara was analyzing the human data files when her sensors detected an energy reading unlike anything she had ever seen. "Admiral," she called to Zextar, "there's something happening in the human quarters of the station." The human quarters had been empty for months, but suddenly the sensors were picking up strange energy patterns. Not life signs exactly, but something that made the station's computers struggle to process the readings. "Admiral." Zextar and Dr. Uthara hurried to the human section of the station. As they walked through the corridors, the air itself seemed to shimmer and bend. The lights flickered in patterns that almost looked like they meant something. Then they saw her. Dr. Emma Rodriguez stood in the middle of the main human conference room, but she wasn't quite there. Her body seemed to exist in 2 places at once, solid one moment and translucent the next. When she moved, she left trails of light in the air behind her. "Dr. Rodriguez?" Admiral Zextar called out, his voice uncertain. She turned toward them, and her eyes held depths that seemed to go on forever. When she spoke, her voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Admiral Zextar, Dr. Uthara, we have been waiting for you to find us." Dr. Uthara's crystalline body rang like a bell with shock. "We? Are there others?" "All of us. Every human who chose the transformation. We exist now in what you might call the space between spaces. We are still ourselves, but we are also something more." Admiral Zextar stepped closer, though every instinct told him to run. "Dr. Rodriguez, what has happened to your species?" "We have become what we needed to become." Her form flickered, showing glimpses of the person she had been and hints of something far stranger. "The entities you learned about from our files are not just coming, Admiral. They are already here. Here, but our sensors show nothing." "Doctor." Rodriguez smiled, and the expression was both human and utterly alien. Your sensors cannot detect beings that exist primarily in quantum space. The entities have been testing your galaxy's defenses for weeks. Small probes, reality distortions, consciousness drains. You have attributed them to equipment failures and natural phenomena. Dr. Yithara's mind raced through recent reports from across the galaxy. Unexplained power failures on Velkrani worlds. Polonian colonies reporting strange dreams that left entire populations tired for days. Aquarian deep space crews losing time and finding their ships slightly off course. The incidents across the galaxy, she whispered. Those were attacks? Testing. Learning. The entities study each species before they feed. They have learned much about your people in the past few weeks. Admiral Zextar felt cold fear creep up his spine. How do we fight them? How do we protect our worlds? You cannot. Dr. Rodriguez's form became more solid, more human-looking. Not with your current understanding of reality. The entities exist in dimensions your science has not yet discovered. They can step through your shields as if they were not there. They can drain consciousness from orbit without ever setting foot on a planet. Then we're doomed? No. Her smile became warmer, more recognizably human. That is why we made our choice. That is why humanity chose to become something new. Doctor. Rodriguez gestured, and the air around them filled with images. Humans walking through walls, existing in multiple places at once, thinking thoughts that spanned entire star systems. But through it all, they remained recognizably human in their emotions, their creativity, their stubborn refusal to give up. We can perceive them now, she explained. We can fight them in the spaces where they exist. We can protect the galaxy, not by standing in front of the threat, but by meeting it where it lives. At what cost? Dr. Yithara asked. What have you given up? Dr. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, there was sadness in her voice. We can no longer exist fully in your reality. We can visit, as I am doing now, but we cannot stay. We cannot touch physical objects for long. We cannot eat your food or breathe your air. We have gained the ability to save the galaxy, but we have lost the ability to fully live in it. Admiral Zextar understood the magnitude of humanity's sacrifice. An entire species had given up their normal existence to become guardians that other species could barely perceive. The main force, he said. When will it arrive? Soon. Days, not weeks. They come now because they sense that something in this galaxy has changed. They know that we have transformed, and they fear what we might become. Dr. Rodriguez's form began to fade. We must return to our preparations. The battle will be fought in dimensions you cannot see. Do not fear if reality seems to bend around you in the coming days. Do not panic if the stars appear to move or if time feels strange. We will be fighting for all of you. Will we see you again? Dr. Yithara asked. When the battle is over, we will speak again. If we win, the galaxy will be safe but changed. If we lose ... will quotes, she paused. If we lose, you will never have existed at all. The entities do not just kill, they erase. They make it so their victims never were. As Dr. Rodriguez faded completely from view, her final words echoed through the room. Tell the galaxy that humanity's silence is ending. Tell them that when they hear us speak again, it will be with the voice of victory or not at all. Admiral. Zextar and Dr. Yithara stood alone in the empty conference room, but the air still shimmered with residual energy. Outside the station's windows, the stars looked the same as always. But now they knew that in the spaces between reality, humanity was preparing for a war that would determine the fate of every thinking being in the galaxy. The attack began without warning on a Tuesday morning. Galactic Standard Time. Dr. Yithara was reviewing sensor data when reality itself started to break apart. On the bridge of New Geneva Station, Admiral Zextar watched in horror as his instruments went insane. Space twisted like liquid. Stars moved in impossible directions. 3 Velkrani ships suddenly stopped responding to communications. Their crews found standing motionless at their posts with empty eyes. "Admiral," Dr. Yithara called, her crystalline voice cracking with fear. "I'm detecting massive energy distortions. Across 17 star systems. Something is tearing holes in normal space." Across the galaxy, the entities emerged from quantum space like nightmares becoming real. They had no fixed shape, existing as writhing shadows that hurt to look at directly. Wherever they appeared, thinking beings simply stopped thinking. Entire planets fell silent in minutes as billions of minds were drained of consciousness. The Polonian homeworld was first. One moment, the planet buzzed with the thoughts of 6 billion people. The next, it was a world of living corpses who breathed and walked but no longer remembered who they were. Admiral Zextar received desperate messages from across the galaxy. The Aquarian fleet had lost half its ships to entities that passed through their shields like ghosts. Velkrani colonies reported their population standing in the streets, staring at nothing. The crystalline cities of the Etherians had gone. Dark as their song thoughts were consumed. "We need to evacuate," Captain Meldar said, his voice tight with panic. "Get as far from here as possible." "There is nowhere to run," Dr. Yithara replied. "The entities are everywhere at once. They exist outside normal space. Distance means nothing to them." As if to prove her point, the station's lights flickered. The air in the command center grew cold. In the corners of their vision, crew members began to see shapes that shouldn't exist, shadows that moved independently of any light source. Then, just as Admiral Zextar felt his own thoughts beginning to blur, the silence broke. It started as a whisper that seemed to come from inside everyone's mind at once. Then it grew louder, became a voice, became a roar that echoed through dimensions normal beings couldn't perceive. "Nitrogen monoxide." The word came from everywhere and nowhere, spoken in perfect harmony by billions of human consciousness that no longer existed. In normal space, the shadows in the corners stopped moving. The cold air warmed. The twisted reality around the station snapped back to normal. Commander Danny Foster materialized on the bridge, his form shifting between solid and translucent. But unlike Dr. Rodriguez's gentle appearance weeks earlier, Danny blazed with power. That made the air itself glow. "The battle is joined," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of an entire species. "All humans, all consciousness that chose transformation, we fight as one." Through the station's windows, Admiral Zextar watched impossible things happen. Human ships appeared from nowhere, phasing in and out of reality as they engaged enemies. That existed in multiple dimensions. The transformed humans moved through space without ships, their consciousness forms blazing like stars as they fought beings made of living shadow. Captain Brian Lewis led the quantum fleet in battles that took place across 17 different versions of reality simultaneously. His consciousness expanded through dimensions that had no names, coordinating attacks with humans, who had become something beyond normal understanding. Dr. Yithara's sensors couldn't track most of the battle. She caught glimpses of humans wrestling with entities in spaces that existed between atoms, fighting wars in the gaps between thoughts. The transformed humans moved through quantum space like they had been born there, matching the entity's power for power. "They're fighting in the spaces between spaces," she whispered in amazement. "Humanity is actually winning." But the victory came at a cost that made Admiral Zextar's heart ache. Each time a human destroyed one of the entities, they became a little less human themselves. Their forms grew more alien, their thoughts harder for normal beings to understand. The battle raged for 3 days, though time itself seemed broken during the fighting. Sometimes hours passed in minutes. Sometimes seconds stretched into eternities. Reality bent and twisted as two forces that existed beyond normal physics fought for the fate of all thinking life. On the 3rd day, the entities began to retreat. Their forms grew fainter, their attacks weaker. The humans pressed their advantage, driving the shadow beings back to the spaces beyond the galaxy's edge. Commander Foster appeared one final time on the station's bridge. He looked more human now, but also infinitely sad. "It is finished," he sighed. "The entities are gone. They will not return to this galaxy." "At what cost?" Admiral Zextar asked. "We are no longer the species you knew. We exist now as guardians between dimensions. We can visit your reality, but we cannot return to it. We have saved the galaxy, but we can no longer be part of it in the way we once were." Ambassador Helen Wright materialized beside Foster. Her form was more stable, more recognizably human. "We will watch from the spaces between spaces. We will guard against threats that come from dimensions you cannot perceive. The galaxy is safe, but it is also changed." Dr. Yithara stepped forward. "Will you speak with the Galactic Council again?" Helen smiled, and for a moment, she looked exactly like the diplomatic representative they had known for so many years. "We will send ambassadors when needed. But our main work now lies elsewhere, in dimensions where thought becomes reality and consciousness shapes the universe itself." The two humans began to fade. As they disappeared, Helen's voice echoed through the bridge one last time. "Tell the galaxy that humanity's silence has become something greater. We are still here, still protecting, still human in the ways that matter most, but we are also something new, something necessary." As the transformed humans vanished completely, Admiral Zextar looked out at the stars. They looked normal again, but he knew the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had paid the ultimate price to save every thinking being in existence. They had given up their place in normal reality to become eternal guardians against threats. From beyond, the echo of their silence had indeed become a roar of victory, of sacrifice, and of love so great that an entire species had chosen to become something else, rather than let evil triumph. In the days that followed, the galaxy slowly returned to normal, but everyone knew that somewhere in the spaces between reality, humanity watched and waited, ready to fight again if needed. Their silence had saved everyone, and their sacrifice would never be forgotten.